right, so we made a garage a while back for our fire station, and I have this other piece that inspired everything. We got to make the place where all the little firemen, firewomen all sleep and hang out until there's a fire. Let's see how it turns out. Right, so I just got this nice little, I guess it's a little brownstone. You can line them up and make a whole bunch of little houses or whatever. But I saw a fire station, and I saw a lot of real estate in the inside that is not being utilized. So let's take this apart. Of course, you take the bottom off, as I always do. It's not that easy. You just got to pry, and I took the back off. Because look at this, it's wide open. We can do so much in there. And take the doorknob off. The one reason I bought this one is I really like the windows, because usually they don't come with holes for the windows. These little standard houses, I guess. So I took those off. And then I also wanted to take the door off. And believe me, I really tried. I really tried. This sucker did not want to come off. So after working on it for a while, I decided, you know what? It looks fine just the way it is. I left it on. You'll see later on, I cut out a door piece and I'll just put it over the top. I also drilled some holes in the top because those weren't open, I should say. And then I did a base coat of gray, or brown. I know my colors, I really do. And I'm just gonna do just like I did the garage, is I'm gonna just cover it with this air dry clay. Now, the last house I did, it shrank and cracked a lot. Do I learn from that? Not really. So I do the exact same thing, but it does turn out nice. I cover the entire face with the clay, and then I'm going to do the brick carve out. If you haven't watched the garage build, I just used an old pick and cut it down to where just the straight tongs, I guess you call them. And that's going to be my guide to where all my bricks are. And then you just start carving away with my super fancy tool. You'll see that I do not have the normal tools. I use what I have. My mom was a dental hygienist for a long time, and she had a lot of these little tools, which actually worked pretty good. When she went to her college classes, she ended up with a lot of these funky little tools that happened to be great clay carvers. And you just want to make sure you get all the sides. You'll notice that I didn't put clay all the way down on this wall because that's where the garage is going to connect. And this side is going to be the biggest wall. And we'll probably end up, when we do all the landscaping and things like that, putting a gutter and things like that to kind of fill in the wall. And there you go. Once you get it all nice and neat, and then I just kind of go back over it and clean any extra goops and globs and let it dry. Here I'm just kind of doing a dry fit to make sure that I measured it right, and it looks like it's about right. It'll fit together just fine. Also, you will notice that it cracked like crazy. Not as bad as the garage did, but no big deal. I just filled all the cracks with white glue, and so that it doesn't just slide off and fall off the whole building. But we're gonna just call that as character, and we'll fill it in with moss and vines and things like that, and we'll be fine. I did just a whitewash all the way around. I learned from the first building, just a lot of water and some white paint, spin it around and put it all over the building. Next step is to get your reds for the brick, and I nearly miss my little holder there. This is just a Pringles lid. Like I said, I just use what I have hanging around. I don't like buying new stuff. I'm a pretty cheap crafter, but you know, I think it makes you more creative. And I'm just going to do a dry brush technique. Basically, you put the paint on your brush and take almost all of it off. And I'm just skimming across the top because I only want the bricks to be the red color. And I'm going to start with a bright red all over the place, and then I will start doing the darker red, just kind of layering it and layering it until you build the brick color that you want. Once you got it pretty much all covered in your reds, now we got to put in the white. And so all the cornerstones for me is going to be white, and I'm just going to go through and paint those, and also touch up any white lines in between that kind of got a little too red and less defined, and we'll go from there. Also, when you put all this paint on, it kind of helps fill in all those cracks. You're going to notice that you're not noticing them as much anymore. So after I filled them with white glue, and then I did the whitewash, and then I did the 2 or 3 layers of red, and then the white, it just slowly builds up. And now we're going to wait for it to dry and put our brown wash, I guess it would be, to dirtify it. And it's basically just kind of this gross sandy brown color with water. And the first time around I put it a little too thick, it didn't dab off, and so I just added some more water. but you just want enough to make it kind of look like it's been extra lived in. And I also need to match the garage. So I did the first coat. Now I'm going to do a color compare with the garage, which is going to butt up against, and it's a little too light, so we're going to have to do a couple more coats and then it should be just fine. Yeah, that's much better. Once we get the windows and the clear coat on it, it should pop a little more. Now speaking of windows, here we go. Those little windows that we pulled off, I'm just going to paint them all white, and we're going to put kind of a netting on the inside to make it look like a screen. I'm also going to paint the little steps. I'm going to start with a black and let it dry, and then I'll come back and put another color to define the steps. Here I'm contemplating what to do next, and I guess I'm going to put the netting. This is just a tool. I use it to make like fairy wings and things like that. And I'm just going to glue those windows onto it, and we're going to make a screen on the back of them. And of course squish them with our brick. Here's the door that I made, because it's actually a good thing this happened, because if I would have kept the little thin door, I don't think it would have looked right with the clay raised up. So I made this big thick door out of some extra wood I had, drilled a hole the same size as the hole on it, because we're just going to use that as kind of a decorative window over the door kind of thing. And I'm also going to paint just the tops of the steps a lighter brown, and then that way everybody knows where the steps are and they don't trip and fall. Hate to trip and well, I guess it would be the best place to do it, at the fire department, besides the hospital, I guess. But I still wouldn't want to trip. And now we're going to cut out those windows. They should have been nice and dry by now. You definitely, when you do stuff like this, you want it to dry completely. Otherwise, when you cut it, it's just going to fall to pieces and make you mad, and it's no fun. So there we go. We got the nice kind of screened in window effect. And then I started thinking about it. We should make ones for the other side. Since we opened up this house, of course there's going to be a windowsill on both sides. I should have probably done this before I did the screen, but that's okay. We'll fudge it. I had this brilliant idea that I would just paint it all white and then stamp it on there, and then it would have the pattern so that I can cut it out. Well, didn't quite work how I wanted it to. It's okay, it kind of left an impression. So I'm just gonna eyeball it and cut it by hand here. And once I got it one just right, I use that one, see I got smart, as my pattern to do the second one. And it should fit just about right. Yep, there we go. Kind of looks like under construction, old abandoned building right now. We're not going for a haunted house though. And we're going to do the same thing for the door too, because there's a door on each side. And of course, we're going to paint all these things white and just set them aside to dry. Now we're going to move on to the roof, and we're going to use our good old leftover cardboard from a cereal box or something, and we're going to do it a little different. I have a couple of these cool little scissors that make designs. One's squiggly, one's kind of got a scalloped edge. We're going to use the one with the scalloped edge, and we're going to use that as our roofing tiles. It should turn out pretty cool. And you'll see it makes kind of a cool little edge there. This is normally for like when you make cards and things like that. But I thought, you know what? This would be interesting to make as a roof. It is kind of a pain because these scissors are not really meant to cut really thick cardstock. So it's slow and tedious, but it's worth it, I promise. Once we get a whole giant stack of these, I always try to make a little more than I need because I hate to go back and start cutting again in the middle of gluing it, and then we'll just start gluing it to the roof. And you're just going to glue it, kind of be conscious of staggering the pattern so it's not the same on top of each other, and makes it more look a little more natural roofy, I guess. This roof has a lot of little nooks and crannies and crevices, so you just gotta tweak it and cut it and just do it until it fits. It was nice to do the backside because it's just up, 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 all in straight lines. I'm glad I did the hard part first though, and then it was kind of a nice reprieve to do the back here. And once I get it all covered and looking all shaggy, it needs a haircut. Make sure your glue is completely dry, otherwise it's going to slide all over the place. So just trim the edges to the end of the roof line and you will get a nice neat little roof. And now we're going to start painting it. It's going to look more roof-like than ever. I'm going to use my favorite gel stain paint because it kind of is translucent a little bit, gives more of a wood texture, at least in my brain. And just go all over the whole thing. And then I'm going to go back over it with a black wash just to give it a little more depth and texture. Actually, I'm going to do it, the black paint, I'm going to do it as a dry brush technique, not a wash. I lied, sorry. And then it'll make all those little squiggly lines pop out. When you want it to be just a light top coat, I always kind of dab it with a paper towel. I have one dirty towel waiting at all times, and that way the brown comes through too. You don't want it to be all black. Unless you do, then you do it the other way around. Then you dry brush it with the brown. Now I got a whole bunch of these dollhouse wallpapers, and we got 2 rooms to do. So the first floor and the second floor. I think we're gonna pick the least obnoxious papers, and we'll go with the wood beam looking things and this nice light mint green one. Now here I'm just looking to see where I want my second floor to kind of land, and I'm also going to check it with my windowsills because you don't want it to overlap. These floors, by the way, are just they're vinyl floor samples, and I just went to Home Depot and picked up a couple here and there, and they make great floors for these miniatures. And this is where we actually do want to measure and put it in right, so there's no kind of guessing because it'll look all wonky if you do. Now, because this paper is all curled the wrong way, I'm going to curl it the other way so it kind of straightens it out and you won't be fighting against the curve. And now we want to put a liberal amount of glue on there. One thing you got to keep in mind is you want to spread it out a little bit because all your little glue lines will kind of show through the paper if you just keep it in one line. So I smoosh it out with a brush and then just very carefully put your paper in. I made it a little long on purpose on the side so that I can cut it, but as far as the height, I did measure that out. Now the top floor is a little bit tricky because it's got two peaks, one on each side. So you're going to measure the height of your room generally, and then you'll measure the height of each peak and make a triangle at the top of each one. You'll see. It's a little bit of thinking, but if you do it right, then it'll fit right in there and make your life so much easier. Once you have it all cut out, there's your middle and two sides. I'm going to do a little dry fit just to make sure I did it right because this is such an awkward little area to glue in, and it would be a pain in the butt to go in there and try to trim it with a knife or anything. You just can't get your knife up in there. So I try to get it right the first time, and I'll just glue it in. Oh, and I also put a piece on the roof. So this whole loft bedroom is just all paneled in my brain anyway. And they have those little windows in the top, and start splooging in the glue and carefully put in the paper. And you'll see what I mean. It's really fiddly. But thank goodness I actually measured correctly. And now I'm just going to double check that I did everything right. And hey, what do you know? We got two rooms, two different wallpapers. And you'll notice that it covered all the windows, which is fine. And again, you want to wait for the glue to dry because you want it to stick to the wall so that when you cut, it doesn't just pull away from the wall. And you just cut out your windows. And ta-da! Like it was never there. And then we're going to just glue those little windows in, and we'll start building a room. Now before I put the floor in, I'm going to put this doweling all the way around on the top, so it'd be the ceiling of the first floor. And I'm doing this for two reasons. One, so that because my floor isn't exactly perfect the size of that, and I don't want it to fall away through. And two, I'm going to use this doweling kind of to hide all my wiring lines. And it'll just fit in nice and tight and even in there. While I let that dry, I'm going to make just a quick little set of steps because the door is kind of floating in the middle of the room. So I just found 3 pieces of random cut off pieces, and I'll glue them together, and then I'll just paint it a brown. Now we're gluing on the front windows, and looks pretty cool. Once we get it all greened and mossy and all these different things, it'll all blend in. Now I had this extra piece of vinyl. It's from when I just covered my glass front door with it, and I had some extra offcuts, and of course I saved them. And I'm just going to use them as kind of faux stained glass on my itty bitty doors as well. And I'm just going to glue it into place. I'm glad I did the raised door because I think putting in that thinner door would not have worked as well. And our people are much smaller than this door is, so we're going to kind of fool the eye a little later. I also got a couple of washers and put that vinyl behind it, and I'm going to fill in the little alcoves up on the top. I'm hoping when the lights all turn on that the light glows through and you can see the different colors shining through. So now we're going to make a mini door on the big door to make it look a little bit more correct for our people. And I'm just using a piece of paper and a paint pen, and I'm going to make a line across and a line down the middle. I'm also going to make some hinges, some fake hinges, and then we'll find a couple of beads to make the doorknobs. Now we're going to make a couple of lamps just like we did with the garage part, and it's just a cut piece of pen, a ballpoint pen, and then a couple of beads, one on the top and bottom, and gluing the little mini LED light inside. I very carefully drilled a couple of holes in our house here, and just enough because these wires are super thin. You don't need that big of a hole, which is a good thing, so because I didn't need more cracks in my clay there, and just string it through and glue them on. And now we need a couple lights for the inside, so I found a couple good size buttons, and I'm going to thread them through the little buttonholes, which is convenient for putting in these lights. Glue it in, kind of like a dome light is what I'm going for, and we'll just put those on the inside when we're all done making these. And we're going to just take some coffee stir straws and cut it down to about the height that I want the lights to go down from the ceiling. And that'll be our spacer. And just, it's really nice because you can just thread it through and glue it onto the end. And there's your light. And on the light that I am going to put on the first floor, I added an extra bead to make it more of a dome-like lamp. And I thought it turned out pretty cool. And now you're going to see why I put these little dowels on. You want to wait before you put the floor in, because this would just be a pain in the butt. And you just want to slowly glue it up and put the wire right along that dowel and just kind of tuck it away. And there you go. It looks a lot more nice and neat. Putting in this loft light was a little bit tricky because it did not want to stick for a while. I actually ended up holding it there for a very long time before it actually stayed. But once it did, then I just did the usual, just put my little wire all along the seams so that it kind of tucks it away and out of sight. I also glued the bottom floor light on to the piece of the ceiling or floor, whichever floor you happen to be on, and just so that when you're doing this, you want to consciously know where your power source is. So you want all the wires to head in that direction and just tuck it and keep it out of sight. And now we can start gluing in all the doors and windows and start having some fun here. I also put a couple more washers on the very top skylights just to kind of finish it off. And now we're going to start putting in the living room and the kitchen. I had made a lot of extra little posters and things, and I was just for this time, and we'll just glue them randomly on the walls. They're just little firefighter posters, how-to and safety, and I think that one was a Muhammad Ali fight poster. Just things that you would think that maybe a firefighter would like to have in their house. Once we got all the bottom floor things glued in, we're gonna officially glue in the ceiling or the floor and start doing the second floor. We also are adding a fire pole because of course we are. It's just a skewer and I painted it silver and I glued it on the top and the bottom there. It's a little gluey and gloppy, but we'll get there. Alright, they need a place to sleep, so let's put in our little bunk beds. Uh-oh, the light's in the way, but that's okay. We'll jam it in there. So we put in the bunk bed and we had a little shelf for the middle. And I put just a few beads on there just for different bits and bobs that they would have, and put in the other bed. And now we are going to join the two pieces together with a whole lot of glue and just put the garage with the house. And this is where we marvel that we actually measured everything correctly and it actually fits. Yay! All right, now we're going to start managing these wires. It's a bit like kind of doing your hair. You just have to organize all the red wires together, and on this particular set is the red wires match with the red power source line, and then all the black wires will go to the black source. On some kits I've noticed they do it the other way around, and it's not obvious at first, but you just read the directions and it should work if we do it right. And the moment of truth, ta-da! We did something. We made light. Not too shabby. And then I put it into our little sleeve there for our battery pack, and it still works. Yay! We got light in the living room, dining room. We got light in the bedroom. We'll organize those wires in a minute. And I'm noticing there's a huge gap between the buildings, so we'll have to fix that too. And we got the porch lights. And we got the front lights. Success! And now it's time for our little glamour shot to show off all our progress. We're not quite finished. We got the majority of the done. If you think this is looking good, just wait until you see when we put some grass, some trees, some bushes, moss, all that fun stuff that goes on the outside. And that'll be in the next video. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. And until the next video, bye-bye.